Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hawks Latest, your number one source for news, updates, rumors, opinions, and you guessed it, the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. I'm your host, Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL. Today, we've got a full slate of updates to break down for you. This is the 140th episode of Hawks Latest presented by VanArt, so hopefully you guys have been enjoying the ride. I know I have, and before this video gets started, if you guys could like and subscribe if you haven't already, that would be very much appreciated. But like I said, lots to break down today. Last night, the Atlanta Hawks lost to the Los Angeles Clippers, following once again is their fourth straight loss to the Clippers at home. So I mean, definitely spans over like a few seasons. So that's not anything to be taken with like merit, but it is still like an interesting fact. Going into the game, I was a little less confident because I knew that they had lost 3 straight games, and there was so much going on with the Clippers. So there's a lot to break down there, and that'll be what we start with in just a second. And then after that first segment, breaking down the game against the LA Clippers, I got some deep insight from Nickeil Alexander-Walker on defending James Harden. I got the chance to talk to Nickeil last night after the game in the post-game media press conference. So I definitely want to share some of that information with you guys if you're not following me on Twitter already and got to see the interview in its live form. But I definitely will break down what he said and kind of what we can take from that moving forward. And then the third segment in today's episode, we're going to talk about a significant fine that was handed down to the Philadelphia 76ers because of what happened during their game against the Atlanta Hawks, which was a little bit ago, but still relevant right now because they recently got hit with that fine, and so it does relate to the Hawks. We got a little segment about the Sixers, but don't worry, like it very much relates to the Hawks and and how Philly was able to kind of hang in there in that game. And then at the very end of the episode, we're gonna kind of talk about what everyone across the NBA world is buzzing about right now, like the number one thing in the news currently. I mean, for good reason, because there are some major developments surrounding Giannis Antetokounmpo's future in Milwaukee. And it definitely relates to Atlanta. There are some significant possibilities. Whether Atlanta were to get into the sweepstakes or not, it still impacts Atlanta because guess what we own? The Milwaukee Bucks pick in 2026, the worst of that or the Pelicans. So like I said, a whole lot to break down today. So without further ado, let's waste no more time in the intro and go ahead and get right into it and start with the Atlanta Hawks dropping another game to the Los Angeles Clippers last night, which was 115-92. It wasn't close. Legitimately, everything went wrong. It was not a fun game to be there and cover, if I'm being completely honest. Now, I don't want to sound ungrateful. Every game that I get to go cover, it's a blessing, and I love it. But when it's a game like this, it's a little deflating. I'm just sitting there in my media seat like, what am I doing with my life? Because I don't know. It's they didn't play with a lot of kind of energy really, and that wasn't entirely their fault because they were missing several key players. I mean, a lot of things were stacked against the Hawks going into the game, but then again, a lot of things were stacked against the Clippers as well. And you can argue that it was more lopsided for the Clippers just in terms of what they were dealing with, everything going into that game. And let's set the stage. The Clippers came into this matchup having lost 5 straight. This is not a good basketball team. The Clippers have sucked this year. I mean, putting it lightly. They've been terrible. Just a joke of an organization. Literally, like right before, 12-time All-Star Chris Paul was sent home, like literally earlier that morning. The team's officially moving on without him, and that was already very controversial. A lot of negative press surrounding that team just heading into the game. And then there was issues with their flight. They were delayed, and then they got to Atlanta super late. And so, there was, like I said, on top of considering Atlanta's injuries, the Clippers still had a whole lot stacked against them as well. So you can kind of argue that it still was kind of an even game despite Atlanta being down 3 of their top guys. And so the Chris Paul stuff was so crazy. And actually, the FanDuel 404 crew at the Hawks games, I'm sure y'all are familiar with them. I was with them last year, before I got my media credentials. So they're awesome, great guys. And I'll be with them a few times this season, just for the fun of it. But they went viral yesterday, and it was actually because of a video I recorded. I saw they were chanting "Where's Chris Paul" when Ivica Zubac, I think, was at the free throw line, and I recorded that. And then I was getting my DMs were getting flooded from ESPN and Bleacher Report and House of Highlights and Hoop Central and just all these NBA outlets wanting to repost that video. And they were like, "We'll give you credit." So I was like, "Okay, cool, go ahead." But then they went viral. I'm sure you guys have seen that clip. If you have, just know it was me who recorded it. I don't know if y'all knew that, but it was. But yeah, like terrible stuff from the Clippers organization, like just ending ties with Chris Paul like that. But yeah, like despite all the turbulence, the Clippers found new energy, and there's no doubt about it. It came largely from James Harden, who I was watching during warmups, and that's one of those guys I get a little starstruck seeing. Like I don't get starstruck much, but like I saw James Harden, as soon as I came out of the tunnel from the press conference, I saw James Harden warming up, and I was like, I'm going right over there. So I just walked onto the court. I watched him warm up, go through his whole, offensive drills where, he's creating separation. And I was like, this is awesome. This is one of the all-time greats. Like definitely one of my favorite players growing up. So that was awesome. It's always cool to see him. Like him and KD and LeBron are like the ones that I still get starstruck seeing. I've only seen Curry once, and definitely hasn't been like when I've been with the media. So if the Hawks play in the Warriors and I get that credential, that'll be another thing where I get a little starstruck. But nonetheless, sorry, I'm getting off on tangents here today, but Harden led the way last night with 27 points and 9 assists, just looking like prime Harden out there. He took 12 shots in the first quarter alone, finished the night 11 for 24 from the field, so definitely shot chucking a little bit, but you kind of can't blame him. With everything going on with the Clippers right now, you need someone to take over, you need someone to be that dog, and he did just that, and it led to them getting a dominant victory over the Atlanta Hawks. He actually had 0 free throw attempts, so just ethical scoring. I mean, he was taking a lot of shots, probably more than Ty Lue would have wanted, or really just like his fans in general would have wanted, but still, it was a very solid game. He deserved to take those shots. I mean, he averages 8 free throws per game, and kind of built in a style around drawing contact, and he did try to draw contact against the Hawks. There were several times where he was kind of flopping a little bit, or he was kicking out after shooting a 3, trying to draw that flagrant, and so they weren't giving him a whistle, which was good to see. Atlanta getting a little bit of respect from the officials. That's not something that happens all the time, and it was actually just the second time in 2 years that he hasn't attempted a single free throw. Didn't slow him down at all, though. He found other ways to score, and he did it much more ethically than usual. Kawhi Leonard, who, getting up there in age, but still impactful player. He's having a great season, actually. He's been decently healthy, and he's been playing at a high level. He had 21 points for the Clippers, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists, so showcasing his spectacular all-around game that just continues to stay dominant at this stage in his career. Ivica Zubac took advantage of Atlanta being shorthanded, especially in the post, in the interior. I mean, he had a monster 14 point, 17 rebound performance. I mean, he is just a beast down there, and when Atlanta doesn't have many of their top front court guys, he's always going to eat. Every center is going to eat, but especially a guy like Zubac, who just routinely kills it on the boards and is just an incredible shot contester. Just been his whole career, but really in these past 2 years, he's taken such a leap. The Clippers earned just their 6th win of the season. They're now 6-16. And you wouldn't have known that by how they played, because their record sucks, but they looked really good last night against the Hawks. So leave it to the Atlanta Hawks to kind of let a team kind of get that spark back. And I say that, but I'm not trying to slander the Hawks too much, because they were dealing with some injuries. And so for the Hawks, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who we're talking about in the next segment when I got to interview him, but during the game, he was definitely the Hawks' main guy. He was definitely their number one option, number one shot creator, number one offensive generator in their lineup yesterday. And I mean, it was for good reason. We were without everyone else, but he led Atlanta with 21 points. He had one of his more inefficient games that he's had in some time, because again, he was the one generating all the shots out there, and that's not a role he's particularly used to. He's had a great 1-2 punch with Jalen Johnson, but Jalen was out last night, and so he really had to take over as the number one option. And he looked good, but also looked a little uncomfortable at times. He's just been one of the most stable offensive contributors in this injury-stricken roster. Dyson Daniels, who continues to really not be good from three-point range, and really offensively, he still added 15 points and 2 steals. But I get frustrated with Dyson on the drives sometimes, because I feel like occasionally he'll just drive to the rim with no intention of scoring. He'll have his head down, and he'll just bulldoze his way to the rim, and then he freezes up. He doesn't know what to do at the rim. So then he'll either turn it over, or just throw up a bad shot, or make a bad read. I don't know. It's been a weird offensive year for Dyson Daniels, but I still have a lot of faith in him. He'll get it together. But again, I say, he's having his bad stuff, but then he's still finishing games with 15 points. So I can't be too mad. I mean, he's still the dominant defender that we know him to be. So I mean, there's that. But yeah, the main story of last night's game was who didn't play. Jalen Johnson, who's been playing at an all-star, all-NBA, MVP caliber level. He did not play. He was actually a late scratch. He was supposed to play. He's Atlanta's leading scorer, rebounder, and assist man. He was a late scratch with right calf tightness. And if you remember last game, in that game against the Pistons where Atlanta lost 99-98, he awkwardly went down and was grabbing his calf a little bit, and then they wrapped it up for the rest of that game. He was still good to go out there and get back on the court. But yeah, I don't know if something happened during warm-ups or whatnot, but yeah, probably 30 minutes before the game, they rolled him as questionable, and then just a few minutes later, they rolled him as out, which, kind of sounds like a little precautionary to me. I don't think that's anything to be super concerned about with moving forward, but it's still just an interesting thing, and yeah, it kind of killed Atlanta's momentum just even going into the game. Kristaps Porzingis missed his 4th consecutive game due to illness. I think it was Brad Rowland. Yeah, it was Brad Rowland who asked about that in the media room before the game, and he's like, KP, do we have a timetable for his return? And Quinn Snyder was basically all I can say is that he's making progress. And that was literally the entire quote. That was the full quote. Didn't give us any sort of detail whatsoever. So who knows when we're going to see KP again? One of the most exciting offseason additions who really hasn't played a whole lot this year. But then again, that was expected going into the season. So, so be it. Trae Young also remains weeks away from returning with that right MCL sprain. So, just dealing with some injuries right now, man. I mean, it happens. It's the NBA. This certainly left the Hawks undermanned, though, and it very much showed early. Atlanta shot just 38% in the first half while committing 11 turnovers and recording only 8 assists. Nothing that sounds anything like Atlanta's offense so far this season. I mean, they've been very disciplined. They haven't been turning over the ball too much, and they've been one of the top assist teams in the NBA. The Clippers led 55-41 at halftime and immediately pushed the lead up to 19 to open the third quarter. Atlanta never got any sort of momentum back. They never cut the deficit to single digits again. It was a dominant effort from the LA Clippers. So simply put, Atlanta looked rough, and that's okay. It's early in the season. We're now 13-10 on the season. I mean, missing 3 of your best players, your 3 best players. I don't think that's ridiculous to say. I think Trae, Jalen, and Kristaps are Atlanta's 3 best players. Missing all of them, that'll do that. It's a loss that they'll have to move past quickly, though, because tomorrow, guess who's coming to town? Nikola Jokic and the Denver Nuggets, Jokic always kind of torches the Hawks. I mean, he torches the entire league, but specifically the Hawks. So that'll be interesting. I'll be here to cover it all, of course. But yeah, definitely something to look forward to or kind of dread tomorrow. So we'll see if the Hawks can go 14-10 or drop to 13-11. We'll see how they play in a game like that. So now moving on to after the game. After the game, I was in the press conference room, and the vibes were a little off. Not necessarily very positive, but it was still an interesting thing that I was able to learn, and the rest of us were able to see. So one of the most insightful moments of last night came post game when I asked Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Atlanta's number 1 offensive generator last night, and a guy who has just blossomed. He's definitely a most improved player candidate. He's now averaging over 20 points per game. But I didn't ask him anything about his offense. Instead, I focused on what he did on the defensive end. He had the primary defensive responsibility on James Harden last night, who, he had a great game, but Nickeil had some moments, but it also I wanted to get some insight on what he liked about how he defended James Harden and what he disliked about how he defended James Harden. Just kind of a complex question to just kind of get him thinking about and I wanted to hear from that player's perspective, what it's like to defend an NBA legend like that. So here's what he had to say. Quote. It's tough because you've got to make sure that you account for his ability to make plays for himself, and that he has the vision and capabilities to get guys good shots. You want to slow him down. You want to take him out of his rhythm. You want to send him as many bodies and guide him to things that he doesn't want to do. A lot of step backs, a lot of rhythm dribbles to get to his pull-up. Kind of breaking it off from there. I'll get to more of the quote in a second, but it's true. As Harden gets older, he doesn't want to do a lot of the same stuff that he did during his prime. And so, Nickeil knew that, and I thought that was really cool that he identified that he doesn't necessarily want to do his step backs anymore, and he doesn't want to dribble the air out of the basketball anymore. He's definitely focused. He's definitely shifted to a team-focused approach. So Nickeil understood that, and he was trying to defend him specifically, to get him to do these things he's kind of uncomfortable doing in the year 2025. I thought that was super interesting, super cool to be able to hear that from a guy like Nikhil, just a very smart defender, very high IQ basketball player. And so then he continued on his quote. He said, trying to take away his rhythm as best as you can. I mean, he's been doing it for so long. He's been an MVP in his league multiple times. It's just about being able to throw different looks at him so he can constantly switch up the cadence to how he's playing. And then at the end of his quote, he said, and that's what makes Harden so difficult. I mean, oh wait, no. That's not what he said. Sorry, but yeah, like that is the quote's over. But that is seriously what makes Harden so difficult. I mean, even for high level defenders like Nah. I mean, he noted like what he was able to do on him defensively, but it didn't stop James Harden from having a good game. I mean, you can prepare for whatever he's about to throw at you. I mean, you can kind of shade him into help, but I mean, you can clog the passing lanes a little bit, but I mean, he's been solving those reads for over a decade, and he's an experienced vet who knows how to play offense even against like every defensive scheme that has ever been drawn up against him. So even with Nas' disciplined defense and high IQ play, constant pressure, because he was guarding him the whole game. Harden still finished with 27 and 9. So that's not on Nas. That's a shout out James Harden thing, because it's a testament to his generational shot creation. What's interesting though is that Nikhil has made his biggest impact, not on the defensive end this season, but on the offensive end. And that doesn't say anything about his defense. That's not me like dogging on his defense, but his offense has just been incredible. That growth this season in that specific category has been remarkable. He's shooting the ball with so much confidence. He's averaging like over 7 3-point attempts per game. So just the volume as he's been seeing has been ridiculous. He's scoring much more consistently. He's showing growth as a secondary playmaker. And yeah, like I said, his defensive reputation hasn't slipped either. So I mean, like his offensive game has just expanded to the point where he's becoming one of the most well-rounded contributors on this injury-depleted roster. Atlanta needed that tonight, and so even though it didn't result in a win, they're going to continue to need that in the coming weeks as, we get some of our guys back, sooner rather than later. So now let's go ahead and move on to an interesting side plot, which involves the Atlanta Hawks a little bit, but specifically about the 76ers, because just yesterday, I believe, the NBA announced that the Philadelphia 76ers have been fined $100,000 for violating league injury reporting rules regarding Joel Embiid. So here's what happened. So Embiid was initially listed as out ahead of Sunday's game against the Atlanta Hawks. And so he was on the injury report. He was listed as out. Atlanta began to game plan to take on the 76ers without Joel Embiid, which that's very different than game planning for the Sixers with Joel Embiid. I mean, his volume offensively is definitely very high, and that's a guy you seriously have to game plan around. So Atlanta didn't get the proper, kind of game planning. I mean, they didn't get to fully adjust to Embiid being in the lineup because they thought he was going to be out. So, a few hours before tip-off, though, for whatever reason, he was unexpectedly upgraded to questionable, and then he was upgraded to available. He ultimately played, which, he logged a season-high 30 minutes in a double overtime thriller. That Atlanta actually won 142-134. Embiid didn't play that full, 2 overtime periods, the full 2 overtime periods, because he was a complete negative. I mean, he was terrible on, he was getting some of his baskets. He wasn't, a negative on the offensive end, but defensive end, he was a literal cone out there, and Nick Nurse couldn't afford to have him out there in a late game scenario. But the league determined, though, that Philadelphia did not accurately disclose his availability leading into the game, which it's true. And the Sixers do have a history of similar violations, so that's why the fine was a little more hefty than it usually would be for a violation like this. And Embiid finished that game with 18 points on 6 of 14 shooting, but he didn't play in the second overtime, like I had said. And he had missed the previous 9 games due to knee soreness. So the fact that they were able to just rule him out in the official injury report and then kind of just creep him back into the lineup, it's unfair. It's simply, it's a good thing that they ended up getting fined for this, because that type of thing is a little unfair. That's not a precedent you want to set, because Atlanta did not get the proper time to build a defense focused on stopping him down low, and also his ability to kind of get a look for himself on the perimeter. And then it just adds a lot of volume, because then you have Tyrese Maxey who's playing at an MVP level as well, and so you've got to really focus on him. him. But then, Embiid on the court just adds a whole nother level. I mean, just it's truly remarkable. But yeah, this serves as yet another reminder that the NBA's new injury reporting standards, especially, tied to player participation policy, are going to be enforced aggressively. And teams with star players are going to face even closer scrutiny as the season moves along. And I mean, that's a good thing. I think that is something that you have to say. I think it's ridiculous that the league even allowed him to play. I think it's a pretty simple fix to that problem. If they're listed as out, do not let him play. And don't even allow it to get to the point where you have to get a fine. Make it so they cannot play. If they're ever ruled out for a game, make them sit. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. And so I definitely had to talk about that. That was a little bit of a shorter segment than usual, but that was something I definitely wanted to focus on in today's episode. So, all right, let's get into the main headline, and I'm sure that my guys at Fan Arch are going to put Giannis on the thumbnail, and for good reason, because it is the thing that probably a lot of you are tuning in for, because it is it's a thing that's taking up the headlines, taking up all the news in NBA media right now, and Giannis Antetokounmpo's future in Milwaukee appears to be reaching a critical moment. It could be over very, very soon. This is something that could reshape the entire outlook of the National Basketball Association. So, according to reporting from the NBA's number one insider, ESPN's Shams Charania, Giannis and his agent Alex Saratsas are having ongoing conversations with the Milwaukee Bucks about whether remaining in Milwaukee or not is still, the best long-term fit. The two-time MVP in the organization expect to reach some kind of resolution in the coming weeks. Giannis is eligible to be traded on December 15th, so they got 11 days to figure it out. Reporting suggests that this is something that if they decide that leaving Milwaukee is the best choice, this could be something that comes to a resolution soon. This could be something that happens as soon as he is eligible to be traded on December 15th. We could be seeing the final week and a half of Giannis Antetokounmpo in Milwaukee Bucks uniform. That sounds a little crazy to say, but I mean, when there's smoke, there's fire, and there has been a whole lot of smoke. Giannis seriously could come available very soon. And right now, you look at the outlook of the Milwaukee Bucks, and it is not good. They're 9-13. They've lost several in a row. Giannis actually went down with an injury last night. We don't know the severity of that. Clearly, the MRIs did not show anything too crazy, so that shouldn't be something we worry about moving forward. But, I mean, Milwaukee has sucked just in general. They've struggled defensively. They have a really young roster, but also like there are some vets in there, and it's just it's a roster that makes no sense. And I was very critical of the Bucks all offseason. I'm sure y'all probably got even tired of me talking about it this offseason, just because I was so critical of everything that they had done, because they're also very limited in draft capital that they can use to improve the roster. And actually, in 2026, which is this next draft class, the Hawks own that 2026 pick between the Pelicans and the Bucks, and basically whoever's worse between the Pelicans and the Bucks, the Hawks can take their pick. So shout out Anzi Soleil. No clear path forward for the Milwaukee Bucks is the realisticness of the situation, and trade options are becoming increasingly realistic. And this right here is where the Atlanta Hawks entered the picture. Atlanta is one of the very few teams in the NBA that have the necessary assets to pull off a Giannis trade. I'm not saying that Giannis is going to want to come to Atlanta. I'm not saying that this is any sort of definite. This is not me reporting. This is me speculating on current NBA news. And I think that's something that y'all obviously would like to see on this channel, because it is very interesting to talk about. So yeah, I mean, they have so many assets that they could include in the trade. And this is I want to caution y'all for this next thing that I'm about to say right now. This is not me saying that any of these guys I would want to part ways with, because I'm going to list all of the names that are going to be floated around in the coming weeks. Let's look at Atlanta's assets. Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels, Onyeka Okongwu, Zachary Risache, Trae Young. Atlanta's not trading Trae Young for Giannis, but I have seen that floated around somewhere, so I wanted to clarify that real quick. I'm not trading Trae Young for Giannis. No one's trading Trae Young for Giannis. That's not happening. But all these other guys, you start to think a little bit. And that 2026 unprotected first-round pick that becomes most favorable of either the Pelicans or the Bucks selection, Atlanta has all the assets. If also Kristaps Porzingis, who's making $30 million on an expiring contract, if Atlanta were to trade for Giannis, KP would 100% be included just to match salary. I mean, and Milwaukee would want that in return, not even to play Porzingis, but they would be getting off a whole lot of money if they were to do so. Atlanta has all these one-year deals, even like a Luke Kennard. And if you stack like Giannis's 30 mil and Luke Kennard's 11 mil, I mean, if you stack KP's 30 mil and Luke Kennard's 11 mil. And then you really just need like 10 mil more to make it financially work. And then obviously Atlanta would have to throw in some other assets to kind of entice Milwaukee a little bit more. We've also got assets like Asa Newell and Vit Krejci and even Mo Gay. You can really you can talk about the whole roster in terms of what Milwaukee would potentially want. And obviously it's not going to be like a major selection of these guys, but a couple of these guys and some picks. I could probably get it done if Giannis is willing to come to Atlanta. And the Giannis trade matters for Atlanta for two reasons. So, and it's not just, getting him in a trade. If the Hawks want to aggressively pursue Giannis, obviously, they're positioned to make a very competitive offer and probably the best offer in the NBA. The young talent alone is significant, but I think in a Giannis trade, that 2026 pick is the number one asset they would want from any NBA team. I think this is the most valuable asset in the NBA, and they would demand that. It could become the crown jewel. Second, though, and this is another very important part. Let's say Milwaukee trades Giannis, but it's not to the Hawks. Let's say you trade him to the Spurs or the Suns or the Warriors, one of those teams, maybe even the Lakers, which they don't have the assets for that. I have a buddy who's a Lakers fan who is convinced they're getting Giannis, and it's if that happens, then I would have nothing because they have no assets to trade for Giannis. But regardless, if Milwaukee gets rid of him, they would plummet in the standings. They're already a bad team. They have a top 3 player in the NBA in Giannis, and they're still a very bad team. Now, if they trade Giannis, they're just going to fall off a cliff, which means the Hawks could end up with 2 chances to land the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 draft. As long as we hold on to that pick, the Pelicans or the Bucks would both have a decent chance at getting the number 1 pick. We could be looking at literally 2 shots at the number 1 pick, which is just ridiculous optionality. Thank you, Anzi Saleh. Either Atlanta uses this pick to work. The Hawks are in a win-win situation here. I mean, this legitimately revolves around the Atlanta Hawks, which is just crazy to think about. And I don't even know if Milwaukee knows it or not. But so either Atlanta can use the pick to build the ultimate package for Giannis Antetokounmpo and outbid all these other teams, or they keep it and potentially add another superstar level prospect to an already ascending young core. And like I said, Milwaukee would demand that pick. If they're going to trade Giannis and they know that they're going to suck, they're going to want their first-round pick. They're not going to tank without their first-round pick. So Atlanta is going to be the number 1 team they're calling if Giannis requests out. That's crazy. This whole thing, this whole Giannis Antetokounmpo sweepstakes, it all revolves around the Atlanta Hawks. A Giannis trade would never be simple. I mean, superstars hold all the influence into where they end up, but I think Giannis would be on board with coming to Atlanta if he wanted to. The Bucks will also want to handle the situation in a way that respects everything Giannis has done for the franchise. I mean, he's one of the best players ever, and you got them a championship and definitely a franchise legend. But the bottom line is this: the Atlanta Hawks are in an ideal position either way, whether they become a serious bidder for Giannis or just simply benefit overall from Milwaukee's decline. Their long-term outlook is seriously as promising as it has been in quite some time. So to recap, a tough loss for Atlanta and Los Angeles, definitely a rough one, but with reinforcements on the way and the schedule maybe easing up a little bit soon, there are brighter days ahead. So we're going to continue to monitor the Hawks injury situation on this channel, the ripple effects of the 76ers sign, and of course the developments regarding Giannis Antetokounmpo as we progress into the season and eventually get to that trade deadline. And in 11 days Giannis is going to be eligible to be traded, so could happen as soon as then. So a lot to track here, a lot that we covered in today's episode. And yeah, that's going to do it for today's episode of Hawks Latest. If you enjoyed today's breakdown, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you miss a single update here on the channel. We're going to be pumping out videos every single day, keeping you guys informed on the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. But let me know down below in the comments, what were your thoughts on the Hawks' loss last night? Definitely a tough one, but let me know down below. Also, let me know your thoughts about my question to Nikhil. What are your thoughts on him defending James Harden? How do you think he did on Harden last night? What are your thoughts on the Sixers getting a hefty little fine for what they did to our Hawks? It didn't even matter because the Hawks still got the win, but let me know down below. And also, what were your thoughts beyond a potential Giannis Antetokounmpo trade? Definitely a lot of stuff to consider there. And so, whether the Hawks trade for him or they just benefit from the decline, let me know all down below. But once again, thank you guys so much for watching. I'm Zach Langley, a.k.a. Langley ATL, and I will see you guys next time.